Dark history, real human experiments exposed. They called it science. They called it curiosity. But in royal chambers and shadowed cellars, living human beings became test subjects. From Cleopatra's deadly poison trials to vivisections in ancient Alexandria to forbidden dissections that defied the church, this is the dark side of discovery. Cleopatra's poison tests. They say Cleopatra mastered beauty, power, seduction, but behind the marble walls of her palace in Alexandria, there may have been another obsession, one far quieter and far more unsettling. She was only 22, the last active pharaoh of Egypt, brilliant, multilingual, politically fearless. Cleopatra VII was known for her sharp mind and deep interest in medicine. Ancient sources claim she even wrote about pharmacology, but curiosity, in her case, may have taken a darker turn. According to later accounts, condemned prisoners were brought before her, men already sentenced to die. They expected execution. Instead, they were handed poison. Small doses at first, extracts of hemlock, nightshade, henbane. Cleopatra reportedly watched carefully as the toxins took hold. A man swallowing belladonna would begin with confusion, then blurred sight, his pupils widening, his pulse racing, muscles tightening, breath thinning. She observed, she recorded. When the body convulsed, she noted how long it lasted. When foam touched the lips, she marked the timing. And if a prisoner survived the first dose, he was given more the next day. Arsenic was different, slower, more punishing. Stomach cramps twisted the body inward. Weakness drained the limbs. Dehydration hollowed the face. Some accounts claim Cleopatra was especially interested in one question: how long the mind remained aware as the body failed. There are stories that she approached the dying and asked them what they felt. Most haunting were the combinations, toxins layered together, one paralyzing the muscles, another disrupting the heart. A deliberate search for what she may have considered the ideal death, swift, controlled, without prolonged suffering. Historians debate how much is fact and how much is legend. Ancient writers were not always kind to powerful women, but one detail echoes through time. In 30 BCE, when defeat was certain, Cleopatra chose her own end. Tradition says she died from the venom of an asp, believed to act quickly, sparing her the drawn-out agony she had studied in others. If that's true, then her final act was not desperate. It was calculated. A queen who had spent years observing death, selecting the one she understood best. History remembers her beauty, but in that final silence, the greatest power she claimed may have been this: choosing how her story would end.
Vivisection in Alexandria.
In the 3rd century before Christ, Alexandria was the brightest mind in the ancient world. Scholars came from everywhere, drawn to its legendary library like moths to flame. But among those halls of knowledge, something darker was taking shape. 2 men arrived in Alexandria with a singular obsession: to understand how the human body actually worked. Their names were Herophilus and Erastostratus. They were brilliant. They were also about to cross a line that medicine would spend centuries trying to erase. The Ptolemaic king gave them permission and something else: access to the condemned. Men and women already sentenced to death became, in the eyes of the law, already gone. Between 300 and 600 of them would enter a specially built chamber near the library. They would be kept conscious throughout. No anesthesia, just wine, sometimes withheld. The physicians wanted to observe the living body in ways that had never been possible before. Herophilus began mapping the nervous system. He traced nerves from the spine, carefully documenting which pathways brought sensation, which brought movement. As he worked, he asked questions. What do you feel? Where? The answers were written down, documented. The precision was extraordinary. For the first time, someone understood how nerves actually worked. Erastus focused on the circulatory system. He watched the heart beat, followed blood through vessels, tried to understand the mechanics of life itself. One subject remained conscious for nearly 2 hours as physicians carefully applied pressure to different areas, recording observations. A dialogue between science and the body, between discovery and suffering. They learned things no one had ever known, revolutionary things. But the learning came wrapped in a silence that would never be broken. Years later, a Roman physician named Celsus would write something that still echoes across centuries: that to harm some to benefit others violates the fundamental principle of medicine. He saw what others were trying to ignore, that knowledge purchased with human suffering carries a debt that can never be repaid. The Hippocratic tradition had taught, first, do no harm. But in Alexandria, 2 brilliant men proved that the pursuit of truth could become something else entirely. Their discoveries did advance medicine. They did save lives. But the question they left behind was harder. At what point does the cost of knowledge become too high? When does understanding cross into cruelty? Some lessons, perhaps, only matter because of the price at which they were bought.
Henry de Mondeville's forbidden dissections.
In the year 1315, beneath the quiet streets of Montpellier, truth was not discovered in lecture halls, it was uncovered in shadow. By daylight, Henri de Mondeville was admired, a respected surgeon at the renowned medical school of Montpellier. At a time when many physicians believed pus was a natural part of healing, he argued for cleanliness, for precision, for method.
Proceed with caution.
Students leaned forward when
These
he
words
spoke.
preserve our order's wisdom.
Colleagues called
This
him
scroll is our
progressive.
sacred trust.
In many ways, he was ahead of his century. But progress has a way of colliding with tradition. Medieval medicine still clung to ancient authorities like Galen, whose teachings had shaped European practice for over 1,000 years. His anatomical descriptions were treated almost as scripture. To question them was to challenge the foundation of medical knowledge itself. Yet, as Mondeville studied the human body, doubt began to grow. The texts did not always match what he observed in surgery. The placement of organs seemed inconsistent. The pathways of vessels felt imprecise. The more he worked, the more the contradictions unsettled him. So he made a decision. If the books were uncertain, he would look for himself. At first, the bodies came quietly, likely from cemeteries or hospitals, obtained through discreet arrangements common in medieval Europe. In the stillness of a stone cellar, by candlelight, he opened the dead and compared flesh to parchment. What he found did not always align with authority. The body told a different story. But for some later chroniclers, even the silence of the dead was not the end of the story. According to accounts written years after his lifetime, accounts debated by historians, condemned prisoners may have been delivered to physicians for anatomical study. Whether Mondeville himself participated in such acts remains uncertain. Records from the era are fragmented, and rumor often grows where documentation fades. Yet the stories persist. They describe men bound to wooden tables, given wine laced with mandrake and opium, sedatives known in medieval surgery but far from merciful. They speak of incisions made not into still flesh but living tissue, of organs exposed to air and flame, of physicians observing breath, pulse, and reflex in real time. Whether these tales reflect reality or later exaggeration, they reveal something undeniable about the age. The hunger to understand the human body was beginning to overpower the boundaries that once restrained it. In those candle-lit rooms, the line between healer and experimenter grew thin. Where one man saw suffering, Another saw data. Where there was fear, there was measurement. Where there was a fading heartbeat, there was a question waiting to be answered. Henri de Mondeville helped push medieval medicine forward. His advocacy for cleaner surgical practice would echo through generations. Yet his era reminds us that progress is rarely pure. It advances through curiosity and sometimes through cruelty. And so the question lingers centuries later. If knowledge demands a life, is it still knowledge worth having?
Which of these experiments shocked you the most? Tell me in the comments and subscribe for the next dark chapter.